welcome all to the second edition of the Quantum Experience. The point of this series is to hopefully gain some interest in the younger generation, and hopefully we can get them to consider quantum computing as a career in the future. I am thrilled to be joined today by Andrei Dragomir. Andrei is the CEO of Aquark Technologies, located in Southampton in the UK. Andrei, thank you very much for contributing to the series.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Cool.
It's great to be here.
Yeah. So just before we go into the questions, there's something that I wanted to bring up. This is for the two of us today in attendance, actually, and obviously the millions watching at home. We arranged to meet at the National Quantum Technologies Showcase back in November. I'm not sure if you remember, but
Yeah.
Your stall was by far the busiest down there, so it was like trying to meet a celebrity down there. So I hope it was a good showcase for you.
It was absolutely amazing, and it was indeed a special year. I think it was over 3,000 attendees overall, which is quite unique in the quantum community. That I remember the very first few quantum showcases when there used to be like a maximum of 50 people, and now there are over 3,000. So it's a clear sign that quantum is here to stay, and it's evolving as an industry. It's getting more and more traction. And indeed, it was absolutely hectic. I think I'm almost blocking that that day for me is being erased. My brain is kind of does not want to accept it. That we got to this point. It almost seems incredible.
Yeah, it was busy. I didn't think I'd have to queue to get in, so that was a good sign.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get to it then. So just as an introduction, I always ask people who are you, what's your background, and what are you currently doing?
Cool. So I'm Andrei. I'm co-founder and CEO of Aquark Technologies. I'm originally from Romania. I grew up in a very technical house. My dad is an engineer. My mom is a physics teacher, and I kind of grew up in her teaching lab. So her kind of the lab instruments have been my toys for a long, like from the very beginning. So I kind of had that. I've been pushed to some extent in the technical direction and doing what I'm doing today. But right after high school, I decided to apply for an undergrad in UK. And I chose Southampton, strangely enough, because I thought it would be in the south and very sunny. I was very, very wrong about that.
Yeah.
But I grew up to enjoy the place, to absolutely love the university and love the people, and that guided me through a career in quantum technologies after a master's in nanotechnology. So it was almost a coincidence that I ended up doing a PhD on the miniaturization of quantum systems, which ultimately became the what Aquark is doing today, kind of the backbone of the company.
Excellent. I didn't know that was your background. That's such an interesting childhood. Cool. So Aquark Technologies. What are you working on at the moment, and what's the current situation?
So Aquark started about 4 years ago at this point in time, as the spin-out from the university. So I finished my PhD. I finished it with a accidental discovery on how to make on the topic of how to make quantum systems smaller, and that kind of triggered almost the necessity of creating the company. That followed with 2 years of postdoc, where I also have the technical work, but also spinning out the company. So it was kind of divided half and half. As it so happened, it happened during COVID. So that actually gave me more time to work on the company rather than being in a lab. And that turned out to our favor, because in 2021 Aquark was incorporated, and from there, following a series of investments, we're just keep pushing, growing the company. We're actually having a first product, our first atomic clock, coming out in the next few months. And more than anything, we're just learning every single day on how to deploy this very new technology into real life applications, how to make it more robust, how to make it more user friendly. And that's kind of the backbone and what the company stands for. The vision is to bring this to real life applications so that everyone can enjoy the benefits that quantum technology can offer on top of what semiconductors offer us today. It's an interesting experience. It started with me, my co-founder, and a PowerPoint presentation. Now we got to a team of 15 actually at this point in time, and we continue to grow at a very accelerated pace. And lately, in September last year, we actually got our first capital, our first investment from a capital fund, from a VC fund. And that round was led by the NATO Innovation Fund. So we're kind of embracing a dual use case as well, which is kind of part of this technology, right? It's a bit like the bow and arrow of the world today. So we're learning, we're growing, and hopefully we're gonna actually make a big contribution in the future on how the technology and how we understand the world around us through technology.
Excellent. Do you, sorry, this is going off script a little bit, but do you find it quite difficult to plan that far ahead in terms of your long-term contribution, or are you just working in the very immediate for the time being?
I think we have to look in the future, that there's no way to build a vision without doing that. And it is very, very difficult, right? I grew up as a scientist my entire life, so I'm very well embedded in facts and reality. And every time we look into a crystal ball on how the next 5 years is going to look like, it's very difficult to me, especially to dive any deep into details.
Yeah.
But that's something that I had to learn on the go, and I'm still learning today. And it is one of the most difficult things, kind of like the business side, but also the future. What the future would bring in that sense. It's almost like a very complicated chess match that you have to play, but you're at a position where you haven't even set up the board yet. So you're trying to envision it much further in the future. But you do that happens in portions of time. Most of the time you're just firefighting what's right in front of you. So it's when you get in the day-by-day work, it's all about the fire that burns the brightest, and you're trying to solve that, and then the next one comes along. So it's difficult, and I would say we don't have enough time to think as much about the future as we would like to, but we have to dedicate some time to it to create that vision that propels us forward.
Sure. So, Andrei, I just want to bring you back to something that you mentioned in your introduction. So you mentioned that you did your master's in, was it nanophysics?
Nanotechnology, yeah.
Nanotechnology, sorry. And so I remember my first exposure to quantum technology was sitting in a quantum mechanics lecture, and I left knowing less than I did than when I went in. It was it was just something I just couldn't really comprehend. The first time I'd come across it. So I wanted to know what was your first exposure to quantum physics or quantum technology?
It's a very good question. My first ever exposure, I think it was during my undergrad, probably similar as you in a lecture room. But that was on a theoretical level. I think maybe first year of undergrad or something like that. But then during my third year, I actually had the opportunity to look at it a bit more on an experimental perspective, and that's where I really fell in love with it. Theory was never really something I enjoyed that much, even though it was the main focus of all my learning up until that point. So back home, for example, in Romania, at high school, we don't really have that much of an experimental side. And I only started to discover that when I reached UK and I started my undergrad. and I really enjoyed that. And when quantum came into play on an experimental perspective, that really made a huge change for me. Which is why I did not enjoy that much my nanotechnology masters. It was a bit more back to theoretical, a bit combined with biology and chemistry. It was a bit strange in that way, kind of quite broad and covering a lot of topics. But when the opportunity for the PhD came through, I knew instantly that that was for me. I was absolutely in love with the experimental side of quantum physics, and that made a huge change. And then cold atoms came into play. To be honest, when I first accepted a PhD, I didn't really knew what cold atoms were or cold matter is, and I had to learn that on the go as well. But the idea of cooling particles with lasers just absolutely blew my mind, and because it felt so counterintuitive, right? You imagine hitting something with a laser, it gets hotter, but in this case, because you're so finely controlling everything, it's just absolutely fascinated and created a passion that I didn't know was actually there. And that keeps flaming up until today. So it is what gets me out of the bed every single morning, and it just almost feels ripped like from a sci-fi movie. And making that a reality is or having the opportunity to try to make this a reality is a real privilege.
Yeah, that's it. It does seem like that those series of discoveries that never gets boring. You know,
It
and I think
really
that's what
is.
it's all about. Yeah.
Yeah, every day is something new. The technology is very new as well. And actually, the technology itself is not that new, but the implementation of the technology. So cold atoms, or I mean, in the end, we're using quantum technology since the invention of the sodium lamp, right? And we don't even understand it fully, and we're using it, and it makes such a big difference. Like the laser is based on quantum technologies. Our, scanning produce in a supermarket comes from there. Our semiconductors today, it's still a surface quantum effect that we're taking to our advantage to create that ones and zeros that define how we live our life today. Cold atoms have been around since, I think their invention was 1985. So it's been a long time around. They sit at the core of the GPS system, but they've never actually been implemented in the way we're used technology. They're all to be implemented. They always kind of lived in the shadows, and trying to push that into a real life application means you have to innovate almost every single day. And that's exceptionally exciting, especially again on something that feels like it comes from a sci-fi movie. So despite of it being to some extent old at this point in time, almost 30 years been around, it still feels like it's far away in the future, and we need to build to that future. So it's never a boring day, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting. So I want to again bring. I don't mean to make this interview non-linear, but I'm going to bring you back again to something that you mentioned about 5 or 10 minutes ago, which is some of the firefighting, or the figurative firefighting that you do as a CEO. So you can interpret this question however you like, but I think it's important for people who are looking to join the industry to know that people definitely still make mistakes at whatever level that they're in. So I wanted to know, are there any mistakes that you've made, perhaps early in your career or very recently, that was a major learning experience for you?
Tons, and a lot of times, from the very beginning to every single day now. I think it's that you cannot. It is the best way to learn, by doing mistakes, and I learned from a very early stage not to be afraid of that. Right, in the end, just my taking an undergrad at Southampton was to some mistake, if you wanted a mistake. Like, I chose Southampton because I thought it was sunny. I was really I was really mistaken there, right? It's just as rainy as all the way through UK. But even the creation of the company was sparked by a mistake in the lab that led to an accidental discovery. I absolutely enjoy mistakes. I encourage people to make them. Obviously, think about it. It's not a type of mistake that you would hurt yourself, or not to the I'm not sending a message of it's fine to be stupid type of scenario, but mistakes are part of the process, and it's very good to embrace them and to learn from them. And for me, I learned that realizing that changed in the way I'm doing my work, because now I'm much more confident into breaking stuff, into doing those mistakes. I'm happy to take those risks in my day-to-day life and in the lab as well, because I learned that everything can be fixed. So it doesn't matter that you made a mistake. Everything can be fixed, can be replaced, or most things can be fixed and replaced. And the most important thing is the lesson that you come from it. So yeah, I'm doing every mistakes every single day, and I encourage people to do as well, but to pay attention and learn from them, because that's how we advance the fastest.
Yeah, is that something that you? I mean, as you mentioned, that the company you're growing. You know, you're a team of 15 people and hoping to grow even more. Is that something that you encourage as a culture to embrace the mistakes and to?
Absolutely. And from it's very interesting because some of the team comes from an academic side. Actually, most of the team comes from the academic side,
Yeah.
and uh, generally you work with like very expensive instruments and lab dedicated stuff, and that's very expensive, and it's hard to maintain, and it's hard to sometimes it's hard to replace, but it's not impossible. And a lot of people have this culture of I need to be very, very careful in what I'm doing, and you should be, but if something happens, it's not the end of the world. So I'm very much so encouraging that to be to be part of our culture, and people to be courageous and daring in terms of what they're doing, because that's where innovation comes from.